Hey there, wanted to do a quick overview of my Melasty milk machine, but before I get into the specific parts of it, I actually wanted to get into some of the advantages, disadvantages, reasons you get a milk machine, reasons you don't. So first off, I would actually never recommend starting with a milk machine if you're new to cows. So we got this about 8 or 9 months into having cows, and it was a great time that we had just learning to hand milk our girls. You know, the reason is you really get to know them really well. You learn their mannerisms, you learn what they enjoy, what they don't like, you learn their udders. You know, you just learn how much milk they can produce. It's really a great thing to hand milk when at all possible. Now I know that there's some physical disadvantages or disabilities that you can't do that for, but I would always recommend, at least for a few weeks if you can, hand milk before you get a milk machine. So some of the advantages to having a milk machine, and I'll get into some more of the specifics of this specific machine, but I think these advantages and disadvantages are really for all milk machines. I mean, obviously, it's faster. The actual milking part is faster. It's easier on your hands, and you're able to milk out more of the teats more succinctly and every time. So when you're hand milking, it's often hard to get all of the milk out. If you've got a right fitted milk machine, you're going to get all of the, you're going to strip the milk out every single time. So there's a lot of advantages to using a milk machine. Like I said, your time outside is going to decrease pretty significantly. For example, you know, if you're milking out about a gallon of milk, even if you're really good, you're still spending, you know, 15-20 minutes of milking, and this thing will suck out a gallon within 2 or 3 minutes. So that time definitely decreases. But let's talk about some of the disadvantages to why owning a milk machine is more challenging than hand milking. And the first is cleaning, and I'll get more into specifics on cleaning this guy. Um, but it's challenging. It's not only takes time more longer to clean, because when you're hand milking, all you got is a bucket. You just got to wash it out, rinse it, dry it, and you're good to go for the next time. This guy, you got to rinse the tube, you got to make sure the gaskets are fine, the machine itself needs maintenance and cleaning, and I want to walk through all of that in some videos ahead. However, cleaning it is a thing, and it's something to keep in mind when you're looking at a milk machine. The other part is getting the cow used to the milk machine. So sometimes they come ready to go. So Sayla right here, we got her hooked up day one and it was totally fine. But Jaira in the background here, it took me about 3 weeks to really get her used to the milk machine. And that was hard. I had to start it, I had to milk her, I had to touch her teats. It was a lot of work to get set up. And here's my boy Psalm. What you doing, bud? What you doing? You're in the way. There you go. Um, Calves are awesome. So the other disadvantages to having the milk machine is actually if you're into cheese making. So I do some cheese making around here. I have to with so much milk that we're getting. But actually the milking process can homogenize the milk, and as a result the cheese actually doesn't form as well as curds. So that's a whole thing. It's probably not an issue for everyone, but if you are into cheese milking, I would stick to hand milking, especially when you're going to make cheese. Maybe you got the milk machine and you're like, hey, I'm not making cheese today, I'm just going to use a machine. But if you want to use fresh milk for cheese making, I would actually hand milk it. The other one is traveling over tough terrain. Now this is more specific to this machine, but I would imagine it's others. So the wheels in this guy are really meant for concrete. In my setting, I don't have that. I don't have like a big barn I'm using, and as a result, I actually have a wagon that I use. I set this on top of the wagon. I obviously took it off for this video, but I bought one of those metal outdoor wagons. I just strapped it on. So it is hard to travel over tough terrain. The other thing is being outside. So again, if you don't have a barn, you know, you got to think about the weather. So when you're hand milking, that's a pain in the butt too. When it's raining out, or when it's snowing or cold or whatever it is, so you got to consider covering. This guy's obviously got a metal on him, so you got to be worried about rust and all the rest. So you got to think through the condition in which you're bringing your milk machine into. And then also, it can be cumbersome to do on your own. So meaning hooking up all four of these guys at the same time, it's challenging to do by yourself. It's not too hard. We got a second person. It's even harder on my mini cows. So the reason is their legs are lower to the ground, and as a result, like, you just don't have as much space to work with under there. So like I said, despite all the challenges, I would still get a milk machine, especially if you're doing it regularly, but I would be prepared that it's not going to be the solution for everything. If you're hand milking and you're like, oh, I'm spending so much time on this and all the rest of it, I think you do save time as you get faster, but it takes some time to get used to it, and there's other things that you got to worry about. So let's get into some of the specific parts on this specific Melasty milk machine. So when I saw this thing online, I had absolutely no idea what it did or what its purpose was. So I want to kind of clear that up for some of you all if you're looking to get milk machines. So first off, this is about as small as they come. So this is a 2.5 gallon bucket, and you can get huge ones. You can get 8 even more gallon buckets to deal. Those are more of the small, you know, the family ones. Obviously they have industrial size milkers and all the rest of it. I don't even know how those work. But this is a 2.5 gallon bucket, and here we've got the hose. So I've got an interesting setup here. Actually, this came connected. There was a hose that I had where all 3 of these pieces were connected. I got a little better, more durable hose, and that's been great, but I have had to do something weird, which is zip tie it. So normally it's connected, mine are separated. But on top of the lid here, we have 3 different things. First off, we've got our black hose. So this black hose connects to the compressor. So the compressor, this is a pretty cool design, is actually the body of the machine. So this tube all the way down to here, that is part of the compressor. And so what happens is there's a vacuum that is made, and that's what ultimately makes a suction, very similar to what your vacuum machine at home would do. And so what happens is the vacuum theoretically would stop inside the machine, but they've got a hole over here where this tube comes into your tank, and what you're doing is you're making a vacuum inside of the container and ultimately through the hose. So this is that piece. The other piece here is the pulsator. What this guy does is it makes sure that when it's sucking the milk, it's doing it in the hand motion. So you'll actually see inside of the cups, you'll see them going back and forth, pulsating, and that's because it's mimicking your hand. And the reason for that is, you know, if you just had a straight suck on their teats, it would be really bad for them. So the pulsator does that, and then obviously this guy connects to our claw here. So we've got our pulsator hose and our milk supply hose connecting all the way to our claw. All right. So our claw, what's going on here? Well, I've got this cap here. So when I pull this up, what happens is the vacuum now extends from here all the way into the bucket. So you turn the machine on and you pull this up, and the reason is now you have a vacuum and you're ready to milk. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take it to the cow and you're going to flip it over like such. You're going to flip it over like such, and you're going to hook it up to the 4 teats, and then you will release this cap. And what that does is it then allows the teat, you know, the teat suction cups themselves to start pulsating on the milk and pulling it out. And then you'll see it start flowing up. You know, if you've got a full cow, you know, you will empty her in 4 or 5 minutes. It's a very fast process. And so definitely think about getting one of these. And the other little gauge here, this is a air compression gauge. It just tells you if you've got enough pressure to actually use the suction. And then right here, you can actually adjust it. It came pre-adjusted for me. I've actually not had to touch it, and I've had this thing for about 9 months now. So I'm sure I'll have to fiddle with it at some point in the future. So I'll get into more specifics on cleaning it, which is a whole ordeal, and then also the regular maintenance of it. But this is definitely a great milker. I like it a lot. There are some disadvantages to it that I'm not too akin to, but overall I would say this has really improved our quality of milk and our quality of just having the cows.